Welcome, friends. Welcome, Saudi oil barons with rings in their noses.
Good one.
To Sunday Songbook, a adjacent podcast to Sunday Cinematic Service, where instead of a film, we'll be talking about a religious-themed album, song, whatever tickles our fancy. Today it is the religious album Slow Train Coming by idiosyncratic artist Bob Dylan. Album came out in 1979, and as Dylanologist Chris will explain, let's give us some historical context.
Yeah, that's my official title. You know, my goal in life is to become a Dylanologist. I want that to be my job title. All right, so Slow Train Coming. Where do we begin with this one? Well, I suppose really the important thing with Slow Train Coming from like a historical context is getting, first of all, what was happening with Dylan in this time period. All right. So the year is 1978. Bob Dylan has come off recording what is one of his greatest albums of all time, Blood on the Tracks, a few years before. Followed it up with Desire, which was a very good album and one of his most memorable tours.
Rolling Thunder.
The Rolling Thunder Review Tour.
Soon to be a documentary by Martin Scorsese on Netflix about it, apparently. Yeah, so keep that going.
That'll be good.
No Direction Home's really good, so
Yeah, looking forward to that. And the time came to do a follow-up album to Desire, and he's on the road a lot, and he records an album called Street Legal, released in 1978. Street Legal is kind of infamous amongst the vinyl collector crowd, because it's often regarded as being the most returned album of all time. It's got a slightly dubious title because it was recorded in the Rolling Stones mobile studio, which didn't have a very good sound. It was mixed like on the go, so it's a very muddy sounding album, and with occasional moments of brilliance. It's not very memorable.
Changing of the Guard, though.
Changing of the Guard's great,
amazing.
And there's a song called Senor Tales of Yankee Power, which is excellent. So outside of two great songs, it's not very well regarded, unfortunately.
I think the sort of consensus is that he was approaching a style on Blood on the Tracks and Desire which he nailed, and he kind of came to the end of it on that, and sort of, it's like a holding pattern. I think you see that quite a bit with Dylan. He'll make like a trilogy of albums, and then sort of he'll reach the end of what he can do and then move on to something else. So
my apologies, I've having my Dylanologist title revoked. Sorry, I don't know where I got Rolling Stone Mobile Studio from, but there definitely was one, but Dylan didn't record this album at that studio. It was instead recorded at the very apt, you're going to love this, it was called Rundown Studios.
Very good.
Seriously, Rundown Studios in Santa Monica, but it has a very muddy production.
But I think you'd agree though, wouldn't you? He tends to make a trilogy, end sort of get as far as he can, then move on. So you've got the first three albums are broadly like protest songs. Then he made, obviously, Another Side of Bob Dylan, a transitional one. Then a trilogy of Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61 and Blonde on Blonde, reached the end of that. Then he made Basement Tapes, John Wesley Harding, Nashville Skyline, Loose Trilogy, moved on. So I think he does definitely have like that sort of tendency, and I think Street Legal is sort of the end as far as he could go with sort of what he was trying to do, I think, with Desire and Blood on the Tracks. Yeah,
kind of like that bigger band sound. Like this one is like a pop rocky band. It's got lots of female backing vocals. It's and it was also kind of around the time that Ronaldo and Clara came out, which is an infamous film that he was heavily involved in the making of.
I would love to see that, but it's completely impossible to watch in any sort of legal means.
Yeah, I kind of want to watch it, but it was an infamous flop, a big bomb, and it wasn't very good apparently. And then he went out on tour to tour the album. The album itself was, met with it's okay. Commercially, it did okay, but as I say, it's kind of got a bit of a reputation these days as basically being the way it was recorded. It sounded terrible. No, cool. I was right. It wasn't the Rolling Stones mobile truck. It was just a mobile truck to record the album. Oh, good God. I mean, Jesus. Yes, sessions were held at Rundown with Dylan renting a mobile truck to record the proceedings. So I got half of my Dylanologist badge back.
Okay.
So the album comes out. It does okay. Like I say, it's got a bit of a reputation as being the most returned album of all time. So he goes on tour. He is touring an album which was met with mixed critical reception, a huge flop film, and then he recorded Bob Dylan at Budokan, which was a live album recorded from the Nippon Budokan Hall in Tokyo, Japan. And the album receives probably the most savagest reviews in all of Dylan's career because of how altered the recordings are compared to the originals. Now, I always find that interesting. It's part of why I really like. I think it's called David Live, which was the album that David Bowie released during like his Diamond Dogs era, where he's completely coked out, and it basically charts when he transitions from Diamond Dogs into the Young American sound.
Oh, like the Thin White Duke stuff.
Yeah, kind of going into that period. I love it. It's a great album, but Bowie is coked out of his mind, and it's great. But the arrangements of the songs are completely different. But if you've heard, I don't know, Ziggy Stardust 100 times, it's kind of cool hearing like a new version of it, which live at Budokan has that appeal, but it's a shame that the arrangements are terrible. Like I was telling you about Mr. Tambourine Man, which is like a big band reinterpretation of the song, complete with a flute. You know? It's awful. It's not very good. And so with all this going on, all this to his name, Dylan's stock is at a bit of a low. The tour itself is people like, it's kind of selling out a bit here. Like, there's too much going on with this big band. He's not made a great album since Blood on the Tracks. Like, what's the next thing here? And it all comes to an affront then. When
affront is a good way to describe the album.
Yes, it comes to an affront then. With this anecdote, which I'll read out here, which Dylan says.
You can do it in a Dylan voice.
Towards the end of the show, towards the end of the show, someone out in the crowd knew I wasn't feeling too well, recalled Dylan in a 1979 interview. I think they could see that, and they threw a silver cross on the stage. Now, I usually don't pick things up in front of the stage. Once in a while I do, sometimes I don't. But I looked down at that cross. I said, I gotta pick that up. So I picked up the cross and put it in my pocket. I brought it backstage, and it brought it with me to the next town, which was out in Arizona. I was feeling even worse than I'd felt when I was in San Diego. I said, well, I need something tonight. I didn't know what it was. I was used to all kinds of things. He's basically talking about drugs. I said, I need something tonight that I didn't have before. I looked in my pocket, and I had this cross. So from this point, Dylan believed he had experienced a vision of Christ in his Tuscan hotel. In another great quote, he says, Jesus did appear to me as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. There was a presence in the room that couldn't have been anybody but Jesus. Jesus put his hand on me. It was a physical thing. I felt it. I felt it all over me. Hashtag me too. I felt my whole body tremble. The glory of the Lord knocked me down and picked me up. So Dylan becomes a born-again Christian. He spends an extended amount of time at the Vineyard Fellowship, which was a Christian organisation, very fundamentalist, apparently. So, under the guidance of the Vineyard Fellowship, Dylan was asked to attend a course held at the Vineyard School of Discipleship, which would run 4 days a week over the course of 3 months. At first I said, there's no way I can devote 3 months to this, Dylan would say in a 1980 interview, but I've got to get back on the road soon. But I was sleeping one day, I just sat up in bed at 7 in the morning, and I was compelled to get dressed and drive over to Bible school. So, yeah, Dylan becomes a born-again Christian.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world reacts. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever, I guess.
What's this has been doing making?
Yeah, I mean, you get like a lot of thinking. Like I was reading a contemporary interview with Dylan at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know whether it's the bias of the source that I was reading, but it paints a picture that the whole music world went like crazy when Dylan announced he was born again Christian. He's sold out. And there was definitely a lot of sense of betrayal, but the overriding sense that I got from reading this guy's perspective, I can't remember what magazine it was for now, but pretty much people were like, okay, I guess.
Well, he would have been a figure at extremely reduced stock to where he would have been like 10 years ago. Like, this isn't Bob Dylan at the height of his sort of career and stuff. Like,
yeah, like if after like the Electric Trilogy he still had said, "Oh, I'm a born again Christian," people might have been like, "The fuck." But I know this way I outlined what was happening before.
Yeah,
he was at an all-time critical low.
Yeah.
People like, no one really cared.
Yeah.
No,
I think to be fair, though, that's a fair assessment. It's his own personal belief.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. He doesn't need to shake up the rock world.
And I mean, it is kind of like, he is it is like the least countercultural thing to do, like, ever. Like, Christianity, rightly or wrongly, is considered to be lame. So by going from being like the hippest guy around and stuff, introducing the Beatles to marijuana to converting to Christianity is
exactly.
It's a bit of a difference.
It's a bit of a difference, yeah. So I suppose it's also kind of a dogma of religion that Dylan got into, because I was reading in the interview, a lot of other similar artists from the '60s were doing like religiously themed albums.
Yeah.
I'll have to get it out in a sec. But one of the things that Dylan really fell into was the more fire and brimstone side of Christianity. So for his Bible classes, Dylan became acquainted with the works of Hal Lindsey, the man to whom God in his infinite wisdom had revealed the true code of revelation. But no saint himself, Lindsey was closely associated with Vineyard Church. His book, The Late Great Planet Earth, became Dylan's second Bible and added an apocalyptic edge to his worldview. So according to Hal Lindsey, current world events have been foretold in the apocalyptic tracts of the Bible. His basic premise in The Late Great Planet Earth was that the events revealed to St. John in Revelation corresponded to 20th century history, starting with the re-establishment of the Jews' homeland Israel. By identifying Russia as Magog and Iran as Gog, the confederation responsible for instigating the final conflict, the Battle of Armageddon, Lindsey prophesies an imminent end. There's a really, really funny bit in the interview that I read where Dylan says planet Earth is only 7,000 years old. Screw it. You tell us.
Well, it's actually quite interesting that you mentioned that, because there is sort of a strain of sort of radical Christianity where they thought that like stuff like the Iraq War was good because it would sort of foretell the end of the world. Like there would be like a war between sort of the West and the Middle East. And that would sort of entail like a destruction of Earth, and a sort of, like the good people would be sent to heaven and the bad people to hell. And it's very interesting sort of, it's complete craziness. And I personally think it's wrong to want the sort of destruction of the entire Earth. I'm assuming you have a similar opinion as me.
No, I think God should come down and smite all the sinners and, send all the good people to to heaven. It's it's the end times, man.
Well, it does sort of paint a different portrait of the song "Slow Train."
Yeah, definitely.
I think the entire album of "Slow Train Coming" does have sort of an apocalyptic fervour to it. It feels like Bob Dylan is sort of expecting the entire world to end, it doesn't seem like that bad a thing to him.
So it came from... So this interview was done by Neil Spencer for the NME in 1981. So a couple of years after his announcement of his conversion.
So it's been like Shot of Love era.
Yeah. I think that's the album that he's touring for this. And he says, for songs like When He Returns, which concludes the Slow Train Coming album, which we'll get to. Let's see. What does he say? Yeah, it's obvious you believe the second coming is likely in our lifetimes. And Dylan says, possibly at any moment. It could be in our lifetimes. It could be a long time. This Earth supposedly has a certain number of years, which I think is 7,000 years. Or 6,000. We're in the last cycle of it now. Going back to the first century, there's 3,000 years before that and 4,000 after it. One of the two. the last 1,000 will be in the millennium years. I think everything that's happened is like a preview of what's going to happen. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like this interview, he starts out fairly eloquent. He's talking about the Torah and all this kind of stuff, and then when it gets into the religious stuff, it's just like you're reading it and you're just like, oh dear, you can't see, but I'm not doing an impressed reaction. It's like,
Well, I think, to put on the sort of politics and society hat as well, it's interesting that this album was, late 70s. Famously, there was sort of like the crisis of capitalism where everything seemed to be falling down as well. There's an idea that America had sort of, been reduced as a sort of world figure as well.
Well, I've kind of got no doubt that a lot of this is also quite ironic in the wake of Reagan.
Well, that would have been like the sort of reaction to that. A sort of a failed actor came along to make America great again. And,
yeah.
So it was considered to be sort of the end of sort of the social democratic streak, and then Reagan came along to sort of jingoistically, in my opinion, capitalise on that in all the wrong ways.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To sort of wreck everything and make it much worse. But he's sort of indicative of a period of, late 70s was seen as sort of the end and, what's going to come next and why is everything so much worse than it was? You had, like, oil crises, conflict in the Middle East. Yeah. Like, I don't know if this would have been before this, but, like, Iran, Ayatollah came back.
Yeah, I think it was around the time when Russia invaded Afghanistan as well, which I think was in 79, if I'm not mistaken. So,
but there was big fear as well that Russia had overtaken America in the West, and there was big fear basically that end times of America, sort of similar things to sort of suppose what you kind of see now as well, that things are at the end of the road. So you can see why, and all from a sort of societal point of view, this album reflects that with its sort of apocalyptic tone and a lot from a mainstream perspective. There were people who were blaming sort of the 60s as well, like people have become too free and they need sort of a strong man to sort of, who Reagan eventually did become the embodiment of, to sort of rein things in.
Well, kind of, Dylan Raven kind of reflected this like during the live tours as well. I'm going to read you a quote here from one of the shows he did in the fall of 79. So Dylan said, we're living in the end times. The scriptures say, in the last days, perilous times shall be at hand. Men shall become lovers of their own selves, blasphemous, heavy, and high-minded. Take a look at the Middle East. We're heading for a war. I told you the times they are a-changing, and they did. I said the answer was blowing in the wind, and it was. I'm telling you now, Jesus is coming back, and he is. And there is no other way of salvation. Jesus is coming back to set up his kingdom in Jerusalem for 1,000 years.
So as you can see, reflective of sort of deep sort of confusion with politics. Middle East is in crisis. So well, we've talked a lot about the sort of background behind it.
What's the album like?
What's the album like? So Slow Train Coming then. It is 9 songs, 46 minutes long. Might as well go track by track. So first track is Gotta Serve Somebody,
which is, I think, fair in saying the most famous song from the album.
Yeah, I think it was the single, wasn't it?
And
it was also used. It's been used in sort of films and TV shows. I know it mainly from The Sopranos.
Sopranos. Yeah.
It's the third to last episode of season 2.
Oh, I even know that.
I don't even know exactly what sort of it potters. So basically, Tony. It's a really great episode, actually. We'll go on a bit of a digression. So
any excuse to talk about The Sopranos.
It's a famous episode because it's like the first one where nothing happens. It's the one where Tony gets... there's a fear he's going to get busted, and he gets away with it in the first 5 minutes. And his lawyer says basically, just do nothing, relax, be a sort of respectable business guy. And there's a bit where he sort of sits around doing nothing at home, set to Gotta Serve Somebody. Classic episode of Sopranos. It's really melancholy. You get a real feeling of how Tony can't just, be a nobody, but literally nothing happens in the episode. It's just all mood and atmosphere. I would give it 10 out of 10. What would you... Oh, wait, Slow Train Coming. So, Gotta Serve Somebody, the sort of lyrical conceit is that no matter who you are, you have to serve somebody. The somebody in this case being clearly God.
Yeah. So, like the opening Slavo of, you may be an ambassador to England or France. You may like to gamble. You might like to dance. You may be a heavyweight champion of the world. You may be a socialite with a long string of pearls. But you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you're going to have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. I've got issues with that.
Yeah, me too.
I ultimately disagree.
There could be an argument that, we're all by sort of pressure forced to sort of submit our will to a sort of greater good, but the idea that it's the Lord or the devil is frankly ridiculous.
Because joking aside, I actually could see it. The song is fairly interesting. When you get down to it, like he says, you might be a rock and roll addict prancing on the stage. You might have drugs at your command. Women in a cage.
Trust me, the treatment of women in this album gets much better from now on.
We'll get there. I mean, that's kind of interesting. We're all part of a big social system. We feel pressured to do things even though we may not want to, but it's because we're part of a system and we've got to serve somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this case, it's the Lord.
Well, you compare this to I Shall Be Released.
Yes.
Classic song about servitude, takes this sort of lyrical conceit. It's about a prisoner, completely ambiguous whether it's like a literal prison, a metaphorical prison, cage of life, work, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. And you feel so much sort of like the idea of confinement. Simple chorus, any day now, any day I will be released. Incredibly moving song. Because it could apply to any situation, to anyone, you just feel the emotion behind it. This song and all, because it's so overproduced and with the corny backing singers as well, it just feels crap.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it overproduced. I'd just call it very late 70s.
Yeah.
He uses Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, so it sounds like a Dire Straits song, only without a lot of the kind of technical guitar wizardry. It's very basic, and to be fair, when I gave it a second listen, I don't think it's terribly produced. I just think it's, as we were saying, it doesn't really suit the lyrics.
Oh yeah, in and of itself, it's not badly produced. It's just at odds with what the lyrical content is.
Yeah. Which you could argue makes like a tonal dissonance, where you've got this kind of this lush, studied band, with kind of this weird apocalyptic lyric imagery. But yeah, it ultimately it's kind of it never sits right with me. And I mean, so some of the lyrics are a little bit like groany. Both times I had to double check this. You might like to wear cotton, might like to wear silk, might like to drink whiskey, might like to drink milk.
I love the one where he goes you can call me Bobby, you can call me Zimmy.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty a lot of the lyrics to this album feel sort of slapdash and sort of tossed off as well.
They are a little bit.
That's a big problem with the album as a whole.
I think when Bob Dylan rhymes bread with bed, I think it was a problem.
And yeah, the idea of lyrically, the fact that you have to give complete subservience to somebody who is the Lord, It is, very fire and brimstone, kind of you'll be punished if you don't do this sort of interpretation of the Bible, which I don't find terribly interesting or obviously I think it's morally abhorrent as well to just, force people to blindly serve something that, is just the Lord.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
It's interesting and all that, for a guy who, the protest albums are about, release and, the civil rights movement, Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll, it's liberation of sort of black people from the sort of white oppressor kind of thing, and broadly speaking, it's liberation of sort of the workers or the oppressed from the sort of chains they're in. Now he's just gone on to just saying literally, it doesn't matter, you have to serve someone anyway. It's a bad regression basically.
Definitely. By the way, this album was voted as the 16th greatest Christian hard rock album of all time.
That must be from slim competition, surely.
Yeah, it must be. I'm kind of curious what the number one is. It doesn't give me a link. I have to read a book to find out. The next track after that is Precious Angel, which I actually really enjoyed.
I think this is sort of one of the best ones on, because again, it has a really vague chorus, which is quite moving.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of the religiosity of it. But I have read stuff where people think it's just a really good love song.
Yeah.
It's really good, I think.
There's one lyric in this that I'm not a big fan of, where he goes, just have a look. When men will beg God to kill them and they won't be able to die.
Yeah.
There's a real cruel streak about how he's like imagining like so much punishment on. And yet the fact that, you were telling me about Buddha, you were telling me about Muhammad in the same breath. You never mentioned one time the man who came and died a criminal's death.
So it's like you can throw all these other religions at me, but, there's only one Lord.
Yeah. But you're right, the bits that could be just about, like, you're the queen of my flesh, girl, you're my woman, you're my delight, the lamp of my soul, girl, and you torch up the night.
I think there's, like, a real, like, like, reading it out, like, the lyrics, they're a bit like, that's a bit weird. But
the way he delivers them is very powerful.
It's very powerful. Like, lyrically, I think it's definitely one of his best lyrical performances in a long time. Like, I think, it's the way he sings, like, again, slightly odd lyrics, but, you have a lamp of my soul, girl, and you torch at my night, but there's violence in the eyes, girl, so let's not be enticed. On the way out of Egypt, through Ethiopia, to the judgment hall of Christ. Yeah. Like, the way he sings that is genuinely, like, exuberant. Yeah. In a way that, God, it's not really sung like since...
And sort of the longing as well when he goes, shine your light on me. That's the bit I find quite moving as well.
Yeah, like, it's, overall I would rank it as a good song, and probably one that I'd be tempted to add to my kind of rotation of Dylan songs I listen to quite a bit. Because I do think it is generally quite a good song. But, yeah, the thing is ultimately, I don't mind, like, religious subject matter, like, being sung about, even though I'm not, I'm an atheist.
There's some really great songs about religion.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think it's...
Imagine by John Lennon.
Well, we do need to talk about John Lennon's reaction to the Christian Trilogy.
I didn't know he had one, but
yes,
he
wrote a song which is like a reaction to Bob Dylan becoming a born-again Christian, which I think was on Double Fantasy.
Oh, I do think though genuinely that the John Lennon song "God" is incredibly powerful.
That's amazing.
That's a man struggling with sort of faith as well. Well, not really, but
but that's kind of what's interesting about like a lot of those songs. Where obviously, like even though I'm an atheist, I can appreciate someone singing a song about believing in whatever. It could be Christ. I ultimately don't, but if you do it well, like a lot of the good U2 songs.
Yeah.
Like, there's heavily religious themes of that, and I don't relate to
Joshua Tree is a great album.
Yeah, Joshua Tree's great, yeah.
I know it seems a bit lame now, but I think it's still a great album.
I think it's great, I love it, yeah. So, With or Without You could be a great love song.
Yeah.
Or it could be about religion.
Yeah.
You could. I think you can honestly read it both ways.
I think it's similar to songs about politics or stuff like that, where if you get too specific, it becomes sort of preachy and not very good. But if you keep it very like if the like emotions shown by the sort of singing and stuff, and you keep it vague enough like that it could be moving to people who haven't directly got that experience, that's the way it becomes sort of
definitely,
good.
Yeah. Because you want to avoid preaching, but I mean that's kind of what's interesting about dissecting this Christian trilogy.
Yeah.
Where kind of like, Dylan had a very clear goal, I'd say, and that's spreading the message of the Lord and getting people to convert to avoid the end times is basically what he was setting out to do. And it's kind of like picking out, right, so this one is a Fire and Brimstone song, and it's probably not very good. Precious Angel's got elements of that, but he gets away with it just about enough.
Because ultimately, I don't think the religious thing's the problem with some of like sexist lyrics. It's the fact they're like sexist themselves, and like it's more conservatism I have a problem with rather than the actual religious part of it. That's just what the tool is using to spread sort of more conservative messages.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Then what are we? What's the next one?
I Believe in You.
Well, I think the reaction we've just had sort of proof. There's just not much to this song, really.
According to Genius user Wilbury, this song is about some kind of abandonment of him and the world around him. They don't accept his devotion to the Lord and the religion, but Dylan doesn't mind that much as long as he believes in him. As long as he believes, he will be fine.
From the title, you could tell what this song's about.
Yeah. I believe in you when winter turn to summer. I believe in you when white turn to black. I believe in you even though I be outnumbered. Oh, though the earth may shake me. Oh, though my friends forsake me. Oh, even that couldn't make me go back.
Well, I think it is interesting how much of this album is sort of just paranoid as well. Like, it seems like there's abandonment running sort of throughout the whole album as well.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Well, we'll break off into sort of a wider critique that I have to do with the production. But my theory is that this album would be much more powerful if it was done in the style of like a Tonight's the Night style, sort of really ragged kind of thing, where you could feel the power of like the people being... Like, you know, he talks constantly about, you know, these fire and brimstone subjects, being abandoned by his friends, how everyone's going to die, but in this sort of lush production, which, again, as you said, it could be sort of an interesting comment on it, but he never does anything with it.
Yeah, definitely,
It just feels like he's used, like, generic template compositions to spread his... I suppose you could have the theory that for him, if his goal is not to make a good album, but to spread the message, then making it more commercial would be... something that would be apt to do, but it just makes it a worse piece of art because,
it's interesting you mention that because Slow Train Coming was one of his best-selling albums when it came out.
Yeah.
Like, when it came out, it quite quickly outsold, like, Blonde on Blonde and Blood on the Tracks and, like, so commercially I think it was probably one of his most successful albums, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess there's a lot of Christian people out there.
Yeah, like, well, our favourite show, South Park, parodies this really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, if it was done in that style and you could really sort of feel the emotion of sort of what he was singing, it would be much better. But I can see why he didn't decide not to do that if the idea was just to sort of spread the message of the Lord. Then we sort of go on to... probably, what other than Gotta Serve Somebody, the biggest song from the album. Yeah. The sort of slight title track and sort of the... I heard this described as the sort of State of the Union song, like, that he does in every... Like, I suppose, like, you got Blood in the Tracks has got, like, Idiot Wind, big 8-minute long one that sums up the entirety. Desire's got either Joey or Hurricane.
I go for Hurricane, yeah.
Street Legal begins with the long changing of the guards. Yeah. Blonde on Blonde, lady of the sad-eyed lady of the lowlands. Yeah, they all have one big song that sort of sums the album up, and I would argue easily that this is the one from it. It's the longest one, most wordy.
I also think it's the closest one where you kind of get to kind of how you described it, almost been like Tonight's the Night style. Yeah. Like, I could imagine this song as working as like a big ramshackly train of a song. You know, like where the band's like, you know, you can almost imagine it's like being like a Neil Young song.
Like if Crazy Horse was the back.
Yeah, like a Crazy Horse did it in the Ace. Yeah. So yeah, I really like this one.
Yeah, there's a few bits in it that, again, lyrically dodgy, but the song itself really does sort of... This is the only one where you feel the sort of apocalyptic nature of it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So, you know, like, let's read the opening lyrics. Sometimes I feel so low down and disgusted. Can't help but wonder what's happening to my companions. Are they lost or are they found? Have they counted the cost it'll take to bring down all their earthly principles they're going to have to abandon? There's a slow train coming up around the bend. Yeah. And it's like...
It's great imagery, though, of the slow train coming. Like, you get such an idea of this sort of, like, apocalyptic thing slowly coming towards you. And, the way it's delivered, this, I think, in all, is a really good use of the kind of, like, gospel-y format he's using, where the repetition of it, which I think hampers the other songs, because they can't... Yeah, there's just not enough sort of to them to make it work how repetitive they are. This actually works, because it's like... Yeah, it's like feeling an oncoming train.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's in verses 3 and 4 when he kind of gets into the political commentary. Yeah. So I'll just read the 2 verses. All that foreign oil controlling American soil, look around you, it's just bound to make you embarrassed. Sheiks walking around like kings, wearing fancy jewels and nose rings, deciding America's future from Amsterdam and to Paris, and there's a slow train coming up around the bend. Man's ego is inflated, his laws are outdated, but don't apply no more. You can't rely no more to be standing around waiting in the home of a brave Jefferson turning over in his grave. Fools glorifying themselves, trying to manipulate Satan, and there's a slow train coming up around the bend.
Now, my problem with this is I don't have a problem with somebody having to go at sort of like, you know, America's reliance on oil, because it is a problem, and also, you know, destroying the actual natural habitat of the world. But my problem is the tack he comes at that the problem is the fact that, you know, foreigners are controlling America's interests. Yeah. Because I thought originally when I was like listening to it, obviously first time you only get, I thought, oh, this is quite a powerful indictment of that. But yeah, like the fact that he focuses on the fact that it is just like these dodgy sheiks with their nose rings controlling America's interests. It's like, it's just jingoistic crap, basically.
Basically, yeah. Oh, incidentally, this song was also covered on the most critically mauled album of Dylan's career, Dylan and the Dead.
Oh, God.
It's his live album with the Grateful Dead.
This song, I think, would really...
I think it would work quite well.
Live, but...
I'm kind of eager to hear that one, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And yeah, the fact that he's bringing up like Jefferson and like the past and stuff again is like, aren't you supposed to be like the '60s icon who would have railed against like any form of like it should be about like moving forward and making a more. I just think that it betrays sort of the man he was. Which again, if he's gone in this new direction, that's fine. But it's just not very good.
Yeah, it's just really system. Yeah, so it kind of continues like that in the kind of that same. My baby went to Illinois with some bad-talking boy she could destroy. A real suicide case, but there was nothing I could do to stop it. I don't care about economy. I don't care about astronomy. Be it sure do bother me to see my loved ones turning into puppets. There's a slow train coming up around the bend. There's also, he mentions about woman haters as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's got a problem with big-time negotiators, false healers, woman haters. I hope that he didn't say anything to put himself in that bracket later on.
I really hope so, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like... It's when you start deep diving into the lyrics where you're a bit like, wow, okay.
The problem is that he wrote such amazing lyrics only a few years ago. Yeah. Blood on the Tracks is absolutely stunningly well written.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
He can write certainly about his divorce in more personal and moving ways than he can about God, I'll tell her that. It almost feels like, when I first heard about the Christian album, I thought it was some kind of joke or something he was doing. Or like,
like it's just, I believe in Christ, man. Yeah.
Like, somebody... Do you ever think he was, like, really, really into it? Like, do you think this was a genuine thing? Like, I think it was something he was, like, wearing to sort of try out because he was struggling in his career, or... I know it's obviously impossible to know.
It's obviously impossible to know. I don't want to make accusations. Reading all the stuff that I have done over the past couple of days, and it does feel real to me. Like it does feel like it's something he genuinely believed in. Like even like a couple of years later, you pretty much stopped it.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder like, why did he stop it, kind of thing. But I don't know. Anyway, next song. It's called. This is when I kind of zoned out a little bit because Slow Train ends side 1.
Yeah.
And so that first side. Overall, I actually think it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's definitely much stronger than the second side.
Yeah, the second side is not so good.
So it starts off with gonna change my way of thinking, which again, very vague kind of stuff about not listening to fool. Well, don't know.
Sorry, I'm just reading this. So much oppression, can't keep track of it no more. So much oppression, can't keep track of it no more. Sons becoming husbands to their mothers. And old
bloody
men...
effeminate young men.
And old men turning young daughters into whores.
Bloody whores. But yeah, he does rhyme cool with...
I got a God-fearing woman, one I can easily afford.
Which she sings twice.
She can do the Georgia crawl. She can walk in the spirit of the Lord.
Direct quote from Jesus said, "Be ready for not the hour which I come." And just repeats that, yeah. This is where it gets into sort of generic sort of Jesus
There is a kingdom
stuff.
called heaven. Did you know that, Mark? There's a kingdom called heaven.
Is it a place where there is no pain of birth?
Yes, there is a kingdom called heaven.
Lord created it, mister.
And about the same time he made the earth. Yeah, it's not very memorable.
Do right to me, baby. Do unto others. Again, just really generic message of do right, do what you'd want other people
don't
to
want
do
to
you.
judge nobody. Don't want to be judged. Don't want to touch nobody. Don't want to be touched. Don't want to hurt
just
nobody.
Told that to Jesus.
Yeah. Hashtag me too. Hashtag Harvey Weinstein. Hashtag don't want to hurt nobody. Don't want to be hurt. Don't want to treat nobody like they was dirt.
Oh God, it's real claggers here.
Yeah, it's not very good. It kind of goes on like that.
Shall we just move on to the song about animals?
No, we're doing this right. We're going for every single one.
When are you gonna wake up?
When you gonna wake up? That was okay. I was listening to that one
I do like counterfeit philosophies have polluted all your thoughts. Karl Marx has got you by the throat, and Henry Kissinger's got you tied up in that. I like, the fact that Henry Kissinger and Karl Marx are the same,
but very easily comparable, yeah.
One a horrendous monster, responsible for millions of deaths. The other one a economist, but that's pretty much the same thing, isn't it?
Let's move on. You got innocent men in jail, your insane asylums are filled, you got unrighteous doctors dealing drugs that'll never cure your ills. You got men who can't hold their peace, and women who can't control their tongues. The rich seduce the poor, and the old are seduced by the young. Adulterers in churches and pornography in the schools. You got gangsters in power and lawbreakers making rules. Spiritual advice.
Bloody Carter.
Bloody, yeah. He's history's greatest monster. Spiritual advisors and gurus to guide your every move. Instant inner peace, and every step you take has got to be approved. Do you ever wonder just what God requires? You think he's just an errand boy to satisfy your wandering desires.
He gets very preachy in the second half.
You can't take it with you. You know that it's too worthless to be sold. They tell you time is money, as if your life was worth its weight in gold. By the way, every time I finish one verse there is like the chorus. So there's a man upon a cross and he's been crucified for you. Believe in his power. It's all about you got to do. Yeah, so I can imagine this one actually, the lyrics aside, when I was listening to this one, which wasn't too long ago, I could again imagine this one working live quite well.
Yeah.
It could be quite jammy, which I suppose one thing we might have to do when we finish this whole process is listen to the bootleg album.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea, actually. Yeah.
Because the live stuff I've heard is genuinely really interesting and really quite good. As I was saying, Dylan apparently, when he started, because when he went on tour with this album, he didn't perform a lot of the songs. I'm talking about.
Didn't do any secular material at all, did he?
By the way, I'm just delaying this so we can delay talking about the next song. So when he started on the tour, he didn't perform any songs from kind of his pre-conversion days, which makes me wonder how he filled up a set, because he only had 9 songs to work with, unless he waited until Saved and then toured it. I don't know how he did it.
I reckon you could do these into like 20-minute epics.
Yeah.
You got to imagine it all though. He has to put time into, lecture the audience, hector them, scream at the women for their loose tops and morals.
Yeah. But we'll have to do that. I think it could be quite interesting. I've not heard it yet.
Yeah.
But it could be quite cool. Anyway, the next song is Man Gave Name to All the Animals, which, I'm pretty sure this one was voted as one of the worst Bob Dylan songs. In fact, however, the song has some detractors, who consider it the worst song Dylan ever wrote. A 2013 readers poll conducted by Rolling Stone ranked Man Gave Name to All the Animals as the 4th worst Bob Dylan song, behind the hit single Gotta Serve Somebody.
Gotta Serve Somebody is better than this.
Yeah, I'd say
by
so.
Like a country mile.
It's okay, because the Wiggles covered it. Who are an Australian children's music group.
Oh, you never watched the Wiggles?
No.
I did as a child, like a baby. They did songs like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It teach you like basic stuff.
Well, I think when the Wiggles are covering it, I think I call it a bear.
But yeah, so basically he'll talk about how man created names for the animals, and so for example, big furry paws and Elijah Owl, great big furry back and furry hair. I think I'll call it a bear.
Oh dear! I was just reading the Wikipedia entry and I've forgotten this, but the last verse is quite sinister. It's quite an innocuous song, like, I'll read this one here. So, next animal that he did meet had wool on his back and hooves on his feet, eating grass on a mountainside so steep. I think I'll call it a sheep. Like, Bob Dylan's rhyming meat with feet and steep with sheep.
Imagine, you were talking about how he could make the tour longer. He could do half an hour of this sort of
like
shit.
An epic jam, yeah.
Yeah, just like...
I saw an animal.
Well, you could even go like, does anyone have a request of an animal? Zebra.
There's a live performance. We'll make the song up as we go along. But the outro ends on a slightly grim note. You saw an animal smooth as glass, slithering his way through the grass. Saw him disappear by a tree near a lake. you know, Adam
Just
and
like
Eve,
a snake,
like
yeah.
a snake, yeah, like a snake.
It wouldn't be Christian enough without that.
I mean, if you throw this fairly, you know, cute children's song about, you know. Actually, it might predate what is regarded to be Bob Dylan's worst song, which is called "Wiggle Wiggle."
Wiggle Wiggle.
Yeah, it's a terrible one.
Which song's that on?
It comes after.
Which album's that on? Sorry.
It's on the album that is called Under the Red Sky, which came out after the critically acclaimed Oh Mercy.
I like Oh Mercy, actually. That's the like synthy one, isn't it? Wiggle, wiggle.
I think we've lost it a bit here.
Let's just move on to the last song, whatever it is.
Yeah, we'll just... So this one's called When He Returns. Yeah, this is probably Dylan at his most jingoistic, I think. Let's see. Just having to read the lyrics here. I mean, I think the actual instrumentation's fairly powerful. But, you know, like, it's... I don't know, it's tricky. It's tricky. Well, it's very fire and brimstone. Like, you know, the iron hand, it is no match for the iron rod. The strongest wall will crumble and fall to a mighty God. For all those who have eyes and all those who have ears, it is only he who could reduce me to tears. So, it ends the album on a very grim note.
Yep.
And that's
the album.
That's the album. That's Slow Train Coming.
I actually think this is a lot worse than people say it is. Like,
yeah. Even though I think the first half is pretty good, like it definitely falls apart in that second.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not the best. And yeah, I think people give it way too much credit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like it seemed to have like an average of about 4.
Yeah.
It seemed as like the best of the Christian trilogy easily.
Yeah.
I actually have heard Saved before. I didn't know about Similar.
Yeah.
Have you heard Saved
I've
before?
actually not heard Saved, no, so it'll be a first time for me when I hear it for the recording. So yeah, it's not one of the greats. It's kind of fascinating though. It's a real oddity.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's Slow Train Coming. The slow train has arrived. It's now left the station.
Hope you enjoyed it, and please stay for Saved.